Really looking forward to this discussion this morning. We're going to be talking about what we can do to stoke our passion, keep our fire burning in what we do, but without burning out. Okay, that's the key, is to get that balance. And there was a brilliant discussion in the group this week where I was reading your comments, and we're going to be talking about some of those elements, and I'm going to be sharing my experiences. I've been teaching for 15 years, training teachers, working as a director of studies, and I'll be sharing what I think are some of the key things that we can gradually start to implement in our mindset and in our work, so that we can make this something sustainable. And gradually, if you're not working in a place where you feel that the conditions are what you deserve, that you chip away at it, and you don't become one of those statistics of teachers that leave the profession, because that's not what we want. Good morning, Laura. I am going to make history here in the group. We're going to invite a special guest in for the first time. I hope I'm not building this up too much. I hope it, not for the guest, but for the technology. Let's see if this works. Oh!
Just how you like it, Rich.
Good morning, Jim.
How's it going?
Good morning. Jim, could you just introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name's Jim. I've been trying to join this chat for about 5 weeks running. Finally, we seem to be here. How are you doing?
Great to have you. And Jim and I have worked together for maybe two or three summers in the UK. And we regularly, each week, it's kind of like a pop-up school, obviously. It's not there, it's only there in summer. And so we've got a pop-up school and a pop-up team of teachers. And yeah, one common denominator is when we have these CPD sessions every week, you can see how inspired people get from sharing ideas among themselves, tapping into the experience of each teacher and their own background, but also helping teachers to fill gaps in their areas of competence and that sort of thing. And then hearing that, we lack this in the rest of the year, we never get any of this. And that is one of the big drivers for this group and for the courses that I have created on EnglishForPositiveChange.com. Jim, so we're going to talk about keeping. You put a post in the group this week. Can you just share what you said?
Yeah, so it was about, I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it was the kind of classic moment where you're feeling a bit knackered, a bit jaded, not really up for it, like before your lesson, and you're thinking, like, I can't do this lesson, it's impossible. And then when you go into the classroom, suddenly you're alive and enthusiastic and you're totally able to do the lesson. And we were chatting about how, like, where that comes from. Is it from within? Is it from the students? Is it from, I don't know, another universe? But it was, but I don't know, the kind of mystery of not knowing where it suddenly arises from, like whether it's a performance or a costume or what.
Yeah. So what's your theory about it? What's going on there for you when you step into the fray?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of a lot of the comments. I think one, it's almost like an adrenaline thing, where it's almost like the performance kicks in and you realize you have to do it, and if you don't do it, then what's going to happen? Like, there has to be a lesson, so you have to do the lesson. So for me, it's a bit of an adrenaline thing. I think it was Becky Spur mentioned it can come from the students. Like, often you're not feeling it, but then you've got a class full of really enthusiastic students and they're all interacting with you, and then you immediately just feed off that. So it's kind of an interactional thing. So maybe it depends on the day, but I think it comes from different sources.
Yeah. I think it's interesting as well in COVID times, that social, my definition now of a social life, well, it's changed a lot in the last few years since becoming a dad and everything, but my definition now of a social life, and I'm sure a lot of people can probably relate to this, is seeing somebody or talking to somebody, or actually having, with a friend, it's hearing their voice, or and so as teachers, we mustn't take that for granted, and underestimate the value that we are that we give, and also what we're receiving is something. It's kind of precious at the moment. What do you reckon?
I think often there's that temptation just to put people into like breakout rooms and in pairs, and you're kind of standing back as a teacher and you're not really involved other than kind of monitoring. But yeah, like you say, now actually sometimes it's better and you say, okay, let's all talk about it and talk about it together. Then you're getting a positive interaction yourself and you feel like, oh, I feel like I've spoken to someone today. Like, especially now, sometimes it's the only person you've spoken to all day with the lockdown.
And who's to say, and undoubtedly that will be the case for many students. I know that's the case for some of my students at the moment. One particular student, a lady called Edu, without going into too much detail, she had a very difficult life, and is at risk because of her age and everything. And so our weekly classes are massively important, and also, for me as well, just to feel. I know that Stephanie Beresford, one of the members here, Stephanie is here. She mentioned that real desire to help people. That's one of the things that sustains us as teachers. What do you think?
Definitely. I think often with the students, the fact that they've made the effort to come to the lesson, for example, they've done the homework, they're ready. Like, you've got to reward that. If you turn up and you're not there, either mentally or the fact you haven't prepared or whatever, you're letting them down. Like, they're trying to do it, they're trying to learn. You've got to facilitate it. So you've got to. I think Becky again actually mentioned professionalism. That comes into play a bit. It's your job that you're facilitating that person's like desire to learn. So if they're doing the work, you've got to do the work because that's your job to do it.
Yeah, kind of. We have to kind of, to some extent, get ourselves out of the way.
Yeah,
and remember our why. And I've had this conversation with quite a few teachers when I've done some one-to-one stuff in the group. And just in case, 1 second, I've got another little flashy banner for that.
Great banners.
Interested in one-to-one mentoring, then message me. I have been doing this since the start of the group. Anything really related to teaching and just generally sort of getting clarity, and if you want to have that one-to-one accountability, then please just message me and we can have a chat. But Jim, because of my banner, I've lost the thread of what we were talking about.
So I was just mentioning that if the student's up for it, you've got to be up for it because they're paying for the lesson, so you're being paid. So you've got to be there to do it. And you were saying to get out of their way.
And that's why I mentioned the one-to-one mentoring, because it's so easy to lose track of your why, but it's so as teachers, but it's so important to just sometimes take a breath and say, what is my why? There's an excellent activity that we did with a group of teachers earlier in the year, where you kind of just, and you could do this today, take sort of 5-10 minutes and just scribble down all the reasons that you you started and you got into teaching in the first place. Guys, if you want to comment, why did you, let's do this now. Why did you get into teaching in the first place? Okay, it might have been 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago. What was your why? And see if you can come up with a list of as many as possible. And I bet you there are people in the group who've switched jobs because they weren't feeling fulfilled. And certainly in my case, I was. I used to work in this office, Jim, in a sleepy place called Farnham. All right, it's a sort of commuter belt. I was a cold, marketing executive, nice title, decent salary, soul destroying office chat, soul destroying. How to toss a salad. Slagging people off. I don't know. It's just crippling. Have you been in that?
Yeah, I think it was almost kind of I don't know, like a life realization. But in my previous job, similar kind of thing. It was in insurance in Manchester in an office, and it was all right. Like you say, pay was all right. Blah blah blah. But for me, it was one of them where, when someone says, "What do you do?" and you tell them, you don't feel like that is anything to do with you as a person. You feel like it's irrelevant information. So when someone says, what do you do? I say, "Oh, I work in insurance." I think just ignore that information. It's nothing to do with me. Whereas now, when someone says, "What do you do?" and I say, like, I'm an English teacher, I teach English. It feels more like something that I'm passionate about, something that I want to do. And they do know something about like my personality by knowing that information.
Yeah.
So I think I remember the first time someone said it and I replied, and it felt good to say what my job was, rather than me going, "Oh, it's this. Don't worry about that."
Yeah, that's very true, and it's very interesting that over time we can get a bit battle weary and lose sight of that, especially with all the outside distractions going on at the moment. So yeah, I really encourage everyone to just, even, when you get 10 minutes, just tune into your why for teaching and empower yourself again, because I bet you find that there's some real personal reasons why you're doing it. Just go to the comments a minute, Jim. Stephanie has said, "I was told that students don't hold on, sorry, Stephanie.
They don't want to learn, they need to, I think is the point.
They don't want to learn, but they need to. Yeah, so they're not there for their own reasons. So there's an extrinsic motivation, they'd call it in the Delta, improve their career prospects. Okay, but Stephanie has taken on these students because she wants to help them with that.
Yeah,
and it's a sense of duty and pride.
Kind of students, you've got to kind of, because I have quite a few students who get sent to the academy, and they might start off a bit like, "Oh, I don't really want to be here," like my boss has sent me. You've got to kind of turn that around and show them they're going to have a good experience, which often you can do from like the very first lesson. You kind of show, "Look, I know you're being forced to come, but it's going to be pretty good, and you're going to learn something."
Yeah. So turning it around, and also I think we have a duty to, I don't know, to paint a picture of what life looks like when you speak another language. What doors it can open for you, and in kind of much more relatable ways. Like making friends and opening new doors beyond just those things that have kind of been enforced upon you. Laura says she got into teaching. She felt she didn't belong where she grew up, and nothing there really made her feel happy. Yeah. So is that how you got into teaching, Laura? So you sort of just decided to go for go for what you wanted to do?
Like, no, I know. I worked with Laura. I know that she came from like a small town, similar to myself, and there's that kind of needing to break free from the small town shackles, thinking like, this place isn't me. I need to do other stuff.
Yeah, it kind of strangely, I've ended up the other way around. I love where I'm from. I'm from I'm from Portsmouth. I'm one of the few English people that I meet in Spain that miss their hometown.
But yeah, but could you live there? Or could you go back and live there or not?
Yeah, maybe, but I don't know.
I love Chorley, but if someone said you now need to move back tomorrow and live there, I'd be like, oh my god, terrible.
Becky, Jim, I assume you can see the comments as well.
Yeah.
Can you? Do you want to just pick up on what Becky said there?
I'm motivated by helping others, and I love the language. I very much relate to that. I think with teaching, you feel like you're doing a good thing. Like, it's not charitable because you're getting paid. They're paying, but you feel like you're helping someone. And I'm the same in terms of loving the language. Like, I write poetry, I read a lot. I'm just interested in that kind of thing in general.
Yeah.
So it's a way of kind of delving deeper into it and discovering it for yourself. Like, I think most, particularly like English teachers, don't know their own language, yet they're teaching it, and you've got to kind of learn your own language in order to teach it. And for me, that's very interesting. The more you do that,
and also another way that you can increase that alignment, I guess, if you love wordplay or you love like the origin of words, then you can bring that alive in your classes or music. Yeah, I love music and art, so I try and infuse that into my teaching. And I just want to go to a point from the group discussion, Jim, where, what was it? Someone was commenting, who was it? Oh, yeah, this whole thing about students that are not motivated and that you're pulling teeth. I think it was Monica, don't have a full name, but Monica from the group said she often finds, and like you've said, students in your class who are not motivated, etc. Now, this isn't an overnight thing, but I think when we get really tuned into who we are and what we stand for, so like Stephanie, the desire to help, Becky, the love of the language, the same with you, Jim, the love of the language. And when I was going to say poco a poco, but not everyone's Spanish in the group or in Spain. If you start to infuse that into your being, your way of being, I'm Jim and I love this language, and you're drip feeding that into the environment. You're changing the atmosphere. Over time, I think that empowers you, because you know what you're doing, you know what you want to do, and then if you want to, you can, that becomes your niche, that becomes your power. This is me, and anybody who's looking to break away from working in academies can slowly. I'm not saying it's an easy process, but it's one that I've been through. So if anybody wants to talk about it, gradually over the years, I stopped doing the things that I don't want to do in teaching. So for me, that instantly it was kids. It was instant. It was like, no. Then it was one-to-one classes, because I found them. I much prefer the dynamic and the energy of group classes and the group dynamic. Hence this group, really. I love, one of my passions is bringing people together. And that's now how I teach. I only teach large groups. I only teach a certain type of content, which is related to personal growth and personal development through English, because that's what I'm passionate about. And I've managed to make a small business out of it. So yes, definitely find out who you are, why you're doing it, why you love it, and do more of that. Phoebe, it's totally agree. It's the parents' desire for them to learn rather than their own. Yeah. So what can we do about that, Jim?
Similar to what I said, you've just got to kind of convince that child that it's not going to be really boring when they arrive. Like they're thinking, oh God, I've got to go to this English lesson that my mother's forcing me to go to, or whatever. You've got to convince them that it's going to be good and they're going to have a good time. They don't need to know they're going to learn something, but they just know that it's going to be a nice hour and a half of the day kind of thing.
Yeah. And
I would your lesson, I assume.
Yes. I would say with teenagers, we were all teenagers. Okay, we all know the drill. I don't want some 30-year-old guy or even older telling me what to do.
Or what's cool.
So,
backwards cap.
So how do we get around that? By at least creating the impression that these kids are making their own decisions. So, for example, class contract. Okay, guys, today's lesson, what are the rules in this class? Okay, imagine giving the teenager the opportunity to create their own rules for the class, for the term. Give them the feeling that they're making the choices. So I did this with one group, and it was brilliant, really, because it ended up making, it just made my life much easier, because they voted for a 10-minute Spanish break during an hour and 15-minute class. And I think that's reasonable, because they were low-level students. It's hard work. They're coming after school, and they negotiated that, and they loved it. They loved it, and then they were eating out of the palm of my hand for everything else that we did, because they had their way.
Yep. I think I also find the temptation with kind of younger learners is that the teacher suddenly becomes a bit more of an authoritarian figure, rather than with adults. Often you're a bit more equal. I don't know, for you, probably similar, Rich. Like definitely with my adult class, you don't try and be the teacher and the students. It's like we're all together trying to get through this experience. We're all going to help each other, blah, blah, blah. And you've got to do the same with kids. You've got to get down to their level and right, we're all talking on an even playing field. I'm not your overbearing teacher. I'm helping you learn. It's all about you. I'm just here to be used when you need me, kind of thing.
Yeah. Are you encouraging students to use us?
Yes.
No, fair. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. And even comes down to in the physical classes, which not sure how many people are still doing at the moment, but the position, your body position, or the position where you sit in the class could be so important. Just literally sitting alongside, with distance, or sitting on the same side as the students while one of your students is up at the board. All of those things can make a difference in those subtle dynamics.
I remember in a class, actually, when I was in Italy, Laurel, a teacher called Priscilla, she used to sit on the side with the students. Like I would always sit on the end in the kind of the teacher position. Yeah. And then I walked past her room and she was sat on the side. And it looked so much more like social and communal, just her not being on the end. I was like, whoa, that just the where she was sat totally changed the vibe of the classroom.
Yeah.
But I think you've got to be confident to do that. But it definitely made an instant change.
Yes, it's an awareness of that, building an awareness with experience of those subtle changes in dynamic, where you sit, how much eye contact you make. Especially with teenagers, it's like, I want you to feel empowered. I want you to make the decisions in this class, even if they're kind of guided decisions. Thanks so much, Jim, for your time this morning.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks guys for tuning in. Have a good week. Remember your why in everything you do, and keep moving forward with alignment with who you are, what you stand for, and what you won't stand for. Okay.
Very good.
Okay, guys. What did Jerry Springer used to say?
Take care of yourself and each other.
Okay. Cheers, guys. Thanks, Jim.
Nice one. See you later.
Bye.